Good morning, Grace-Toti and friends here and there. I've been talking about the four sons of Proverbs. Do you remember? The simple, the scoffer, the fool, and the wise. We began with the simple, the naive, people-pleasing follower. Last time we looked at the scoffer, the skeptical mocker who challenges all truth and all authorities. This time, the fool. The wise and the fool are two of the main characters in Scripture, together with the righteous and the wicked. The word fool, in all of its various forms, is found more than 300 times in the Bible. So he's described in a lot of ways. Now, I'm going to give you some hope up front today. Fools are redeemable. By God's saving grace alone, they can be born again and grow up in Him, be trained for ministry, and even serve the Lord faithfully. This guy right here is Peter Engelbrecht. He grew up in Kwekwe, Zimbabwe, a long time ago. He will tell you that in his teen years, he was a fool, a heavy drinking, wild party animal. He and his buddies had an idea of fun called the Hood Ornament Challenge. So after drinking a bit, they would drive out on the road and one guy would get up on the bonnet, the hood, and the other guys would drive the car down the road fast, and they would see who could lean the furthest into the wind. Somehow he survived. In one car accident, he was thrown through the front windscreen. In another, he was thrown through the rear windscreen. Finally, he was on a motorcycle and a car pulled out in front of him, launching him through the air. He lost a bit of his nose and his skull had multiple fractures. He was in the hospital for months. When he was compensated for his injuries, he took the money to go to America and check out the bars over in America. Later in South Africa, he met and married a girl named Dawn. And as time went on, they had a little girl named Emma. And when she was just a baby, they returned to Zimbabwe to visit a friend who owned a lion farm. These lions, you could scratch through the big fence, and they seemed kind of docile. Well, they were chatting, and Dawn was holding little Emma on her hip with the legs facing out. And when one leg went through the fence, the lioness bit into it. And the baby screamed, and then Pete and Dawn and everybody else screamed. They hit the lioness through the fence as best they could, but she wouldn't let go. She didn't tear the leg, but she was staring and still. The baby continued to scream. Pete finally scaled the fence and went over, landing down inside, climbing onto the lioness's back and pulling with all his might to open its jaws, lacerating his own fingers. Emma's leg came free, and they pulled her back through the fence. As Pete spun around off the lioness's back and backed up to the fence, he realized another lioness had moved in. Both growled at him, one with green eyes and one with golden eyes, and he said both of them had really bad breath. But neither lunged at him. He felt this strange peace, as though there was a shield around him, as the lionesses craned their necks, growling, but stood still. Pete's last name, Engelbrecht, means bright angel. Pete's father saw a male lion charging from across the way and summoned his son to get out. As Pete scaled the fence, the male lion jumped, but crashed into the fence just below him. At the hospital, the doctor reported that, miraculously, Emma's leg was not broken, nor her flesh torn. There were just puncture wounds where the lioness had bitten in. And Peter's mom, who at that time was not a believer, said to him, "Peter, my boy, don't you think God's trying to get your attention?" The words struck Peter, and after he returned to Joburg with his family, he set off to find a nameless, faceless God. And there was a little red roof building in which our team was planting a church. Peter and Dawn both trusted Christ and trained in our institute. They and their family years later, relocated to New Zealand a while back and successfully got their businesses going around Auckland. And they're involved with a church plant there. This is their family today. God's grace. I love their testimonies. Peter will tell you, if God can save me, turn my life around, He can save anyone. I was a foolish, foolish boy. Now, I don't know your culture or how you understand the word fool. We have to be careful of scaling back the word to just mean a silly person. In English, if I fool you, I've played a trick on you. So it means a lighthearted deceiving or joking, fooling around, you know? The Bible's meaning is a bit more serious. Combining several dozen passages together, which is a fun exercise, I came up with about 5 basic characteristics of a fool. Number 1, they are willful and rebellious. So they do what they shouldn't do. They are interested in telling and in doing, not in listening or being still. 2, they're stubborn and difficult. So refusing to do what they should do. The main problem here is refusing correction or rejecting words of caution. They're always right, very wise in their own eyes, and they trust their own mind. So if you differ, you're wrong. Thirdly, they hate to be normal. They love to stand out, never be seen as regular or blah. That's like the worst insult. They often flaunt and brag about the foolish stuff they do. And some have intoxicated ambitions like being famous all over the world. Their eyes are on the end of the earth. Number 4, they talk a lot, babbling on, slandering other people, causing disagreements, and immediately venting their thoughts and emotions. No holding back, no pondering, no thoughtful or careful or refined words, trashing anyone who disagrees with their opinions, which of course are the truth, sometimes yelling in a rage and sometimes laughing like the scoffer. Wise men speak because they have something to say. Fools because they have to say something. Number 5, they love dangerous and harmful things in the name of fun and joking. Oh, I don't know, smashing an old lady's flower pots, burning down a barn, standing on the bonnet of a fast-moving car. Proverbs says that they are reckless and careless. They could care less. You are safer meeting a mama bear robbed of her cubs than hanging around with a fool. It sounds strange to say it, but a fool can be stupid. The Greek word is moros, from which we get moron. But a fool may be very smart. They may be very rich. They may have advanced degrees. So fool and ignorant are not good synonyms. In fact, Molière said, a learned fool is more a fool than an ignorant fool. But they're unwise because they're driven by what's in their heart. Even before we get to Proverbs, Psalm 14:1 and 53:1 both famously state, the fool has said in his heart, there is no God. He might not say it on his lips. He may not come out and say God does not exist in the atheist sense, but he says it in his heart, meaning that in his thinking, in his actions, his whole life orientation, God is not even on the radar. He may know about God and have heard Bible ideas in church, but he doesn't ever think about God on his own. And as Dostoevsky wrote, if God is dead, everything is permissible. There's no idea of judgment or consequences for the fool. A fool in his or her own moral compass. As Proverbs 12:15 says, the way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to advice. Now here's one of the saddest facts of all. We all start out as fools. Proverbs 22:15, foolishness is bound up in the heart of a child, but the rod of correction will drive it far from him. Our cute, cuddly, precious babies are godless, willful, stubborn, rebellious, and vent their emotions quickly. They're fools. So sad. So all you have to do to rear a fool is, that's right, just leave him to himself. Proverbs 17:21, the father of a fool has no joy, and a child left to himself brings his mother to shame. So a big part of parenting is breaking the will, not the spirit of the heart of a child, but the will. Win those battles before age 5. Many are the foolish parents that indulge their children and laugh at their disobedience when they're little and then try to crack down when they're teens. The battle must be won early. But that's another talk. So how should we respond to fools? I hate to say it, but stay away. Proverbs warns us not to keep company with fools. Since you can't separate a fool from their foolishness, you have to separate yourself from them. Teenagers and adults have a difficult time discerning which friends are fun and which are fools. And separating, it's almost impossible. Many Christian kids want to stay with their foolish friends as a good influence, but that's not what Proverbs says. Also, do not try to reason with a fool. A fool sees only one perspective, one color in the spectrum. Their opinion is the only right one. Proverbs 26:4 says, don't answer a fool according to his folly. Mark Twain said, never argue with stupid people. They'll drag you down to their level and beat you with experience. Arguing with a fool just proves that there are two, and people from a distance can't tell who is who. So just leave them alone. What happens to the fool? Well, normally poverty, suffering, and ruin follow the fool, Proverbs 10. Luxury and honor and being a fool don't normally go together, unless you're in politics. But Solomon said that honor to a fool is like snow in summer. It's just way wrong. Foolishness and discipline from authorities, yeah, they go together. A rod is for the back of the fool. Proverbs 17:10 says, a verbal rebuke goes deeper into a man of understanding than 100 blows into a fool. Normally, as with the scoffer, the crush of a failed life is the only thing that can teach them that they're actually wrong, that they've been wrong all along. And that's what happened to Peter Engelbrecht. No human condition is a match for God's grace. So keep well and live wisely today.